What's up, folks? Today I'm talking about a movie that nobody else is really talking about. It is called Gilman, Teenage Kraken, which is a film from DreamWorks, and I gotta say, it's a pretty tough act to follow, The Last Wish. So much so that I completely forgot that Gilman was even coming out this year. I saw a trailer for it on Twitter. I'm like, oh yeah, there's this octopus movie from DreamWorks, and I completely blanked on that. And to be fair, that's because the marketing for this movie is not good. It's not good. And the trailers that we do have are like illumination levels of spoilery, where you can just watch the trailers and you know how the movie ends. They absolutely go hog wild with just showing off everything. And it doesn't leave much to the imagination to connect the dots and what happens. It's a very simple movie that way. But even more interesting is the predicament films are in general when it comes to the movie industry for theaters. Folks, these films are falling like flies right now. A lot of these safe bet films aren't doing so hot. Elemental didn't do so hot. That's not a pun. Gilman just tanked. It did horrible, just terrible. It cost $70 million to make. And I think it's only made $10 million back. So it's been a disaster, which is, again, it's so unfair to the folks who make the film because that's a separate department and they're just trying their best. And I will judge the movie according to its own merit outside of marketing, because I feel like the box office returns is a separate thing to judge for a movie, of course, separately. Duh. I didn't think that much of Schindler's List. It only made this much money. Obviously a bad movie. I'm a movie critic. But yeah, I would say a lot of these films are just kind of falling flat on their faces as it goes right now. Indiana Jones, The Flash, The Little Mermaid domestically did fine. Internationally, not so hot. Elemental, again, is struggling. A lot of these films, a lot of these studios and companies aren't doing so well. And the movies that are doing well are the ones that actually have hype around it, like Spider-Verse 2, the Mario movie, Oppenheimer, Barbie coming out here soon. It remains to be seen how they perform, but it goes to show that the movie industry is kind of stuck, and that this derivative kind of franchise-driven content doesn't do as well anymore. And that kind of makes me hopeful. But then you have something like Gilman, which isn't from a franchise. It's wholly original. And yet it goes to show you that marketing's apparently pretty important to making a good movie succeed. Yes, there are moments where a concept just doesn't click with an audience. I think that was the case for Elemental, which is a shame because the film is actually pretty solid. But Gilman just didn't do it for me as far as the trailers. I was like, yes, I can't wait to see this. I thought, I'll check it out. And yeah, it was fine. Just meh. I already saw that it's going to be getting a digital release here in July, which is oh yeah, that's a death rattle if I've ever seen one. Interesting that Ruby was too revealing in its trailers, while Elemental was too reserved. They just can't get it right. So Gilman, Teenage Kraken was directed by Kirk D'Amico and was written by Pam Brady, who I believe worked on South Park back in the day. And I think Kirk worked on The Croods, I believe, and Vivo. Though the original story was written by Brian C. Brown and Elliot Di Giuseppe. I'm pretty sure it's Italian. But yeah, I was curious if Gilman was based on a book, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's just an original concept that sprouted up at DreamWorks and then took form. And the entire synopsis for the movie, and there might be some spoilers here and there, so just take it for what it's worth. Though again, the trailer is so just revealing that if you've seen the trailer, you kind of know what happens. But you got the character of Ruby, who is a Kraken. She's in high school. She's a bit of a nerd, a bit of an introvert, but she has, she wants to be accepted. She wants to be one of the humans as far as having fun goes and being involved and socializing, but going through that awkward teenage, those years, that development. She's a family who is, they live by the sea, but they forbid the family from going into the water where the ocean's evil, which is kind of a mixed message thing. I'm a little bit confused over the premise. And there's a line the movie says that kind of addresses it. Okay, the mother, Agatha, is don't go into the water, never go into the ocean, clearly trying to hide something without ever really saying why. By happenstance, Ruby falls into the water, goes into Kraken mode, and discovers that she has these powers, that she's a Kraken, and that some Krakens can turn into giant Krakens because of some royal bloodline. And I find it odd that you're in a home that's like, don't go in the ocean. Also, we're right next to the ocean. Also, look at our ocean-themed everything. Also, this doesn't make sense. And I know folks are like, well, they said they're near the ocean because of hydration or being moist so they don't dry out or whatever. I'm like, well, lakes, exist. Bathtubs exist. Water bottles exist. I just find it a little bit, what a precarious place to set up shop for your home. If you don't want to be next to the ocean, maybe you shouldn't live next to it. But the entire thing is that the Krakens are like, they protect the oceans, that history has gotten it wrong, that Krakens aren't bad guys, that all these other animals and creatures are the bad guys, like mermaids. Mermaids are jerks. And I know that so much of this lined up with like the live action remake of Little Mermaid and DreamWorks kind of dunking on it, which, hey, I'm like, I always enjoyed DreamWorks dunks on Disney. Takes me back to Shrek, right? But the timing didn't really work out that well because I felt no one really cared for the remake for Little Mermaid. They're like, yeah, that was a movie, whatever. And then no one even watched Ruby Gilman, really. And they're like, wait, there was a satire from DreamWorks? Oh, okay. And even then the character, her name's Chelsea. She's supposed to be, paying homage. I say homage, just a bit of a satire towards Ariel from, of course, her face to her hair. And part of, I guess, a spoiler here, is that like she tricks Ruby the entire time because she shows up to school, befriends Ruby, tells Ruby, oh, I know you're a Kraken. Also, I'm a mermaid. We're part of this war, but if I get this Triton that your mother hid, I can fix everything. And then Ruby goes to training, being like, I'm finally making a friend and becoming popular, I guess. I don't know. She gets the Triton, and then a very obvious betrayal happens. And that's kind of the movie. They beat the bad guy. They beat Chelsea. And that's it. All these folks are like shipping Chelsea with Ruby, being like, oh my God, the mermaid and the Kraken. I ship them. Pump your brakes. All right. Chelsea is like 1,000-year-old like anime character in a way.
I'm just a little baby girl.
0?
I'm 1,000.
Nope.
I thought it would have gone that direction. When I watched the movie, I was thinking like, okay, how does this play out? Who's going to be the bad guy? The mom? The grandma, there's a grandma, by the way, who's like the queen Kraken who wants her granddaughter to come back to the ocean. There's some distance between Agatha, the mom, and the grandmother, where they're like, I don't want this life. I want to live my own life kind of thing. So there's that generational trauma, of course. It's just, everywhere now in animated films, along with panic attacks, apparently. But yeah, I guess ultimately the way the film played out, I'm like, either Chelsea's the bad guy, or Agatha's the bad guy, or the grandmother's the bad guy. This is how it goes. And I was hopeful that maybe it would be something like, what if the mermaid teams up with the Kraken and they flip the script on the status quo? That's what's up. Nah, it's just a villain. And I've been wanting villains again. I've been saying that for a while, but this was kind of a lame villain. It's kind of like one of those like 2010s villains where it's like Hans is the bad guy in Frozen, or, oh my gosh, Mayor Bellwether from Zootopia is the bad guy. We've been deceived. Just give me an unapologetically evil villain right out the gate. None of this hiding nonsense. It gets old. And for here, it wasn't very rewarding. I thought Chelsea was more fun as kind of this tenuous friendship. I would have preferred to see more of that. But instead, it's like, I'm the villain. And then a very anticlimactic fight at the end that lacked a lot of impact, too. I noticed the sound design was a bit soft. And maybe it was my theater. Maybe it was. But I was watching these fights, and I'm like, this feels very light and lacks the impact of a big monster battle, in my opinion, compared to like Pacific Rim where you really feel his hits. Here, it's like, not so much. Folks are probably like, well, yeah, it's a kid's movie. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, you're stupid, shut up. I suppose one of the things it reminds me of is like Turning Red. Though Turning Red did it better with like, Mom, I'm turning into something. I'm a teenager and I'm also transforming, with the mother trying to keep like things together and hiding her own past. Didn't really work as well for Ruby. I thought, again, it was too simple. I thought its themes and its story and its characters were all far too simple. And it's funny because like simplicity done right can be amazing, but it needs to be done right. It needs to be compelling. You need some really good characters to be invested in. And I did not feel that here. I saw that twist with Chelsea the mermaid a mile away. And also Ruby was kind of dense. I was hoping it should be a bit more fun, but she's always like, I'm scared, I'm nervous, and I'm also a math person. For a character who's like, how do we examine the issue? Like that's part of her character is how do we examine and quantify the issue? It's like, how did you not see this trick from like 10 miles away, both for your family lying to you and Chelsea betraying you? That should have been pretty obvious, Miss Problem Solver. Stupid teenager, how dare you not be more immersive? This kid movie is not impressing me, damn it. Animation was fun though. I do appreciate that. I like the movement, I like the rubber hose for the Krakens, like their stretchy arms and their movement. There's some good composition with scenes. I also feel like there is some weird human designs. There's a stylization that I'm here for. And I will take stylization over like hyper realistic characters any day. But like some of these human characters looked like, I don't know, like the humans I'd see in a Kroger commercial with their weird proportions. And yeah, the side characters too weren't that much fun to me. Like you got Ruby's friend whose name I forget. I'm like, oh, she's like Amethyst kind of from Steven Universe, but like not nearly as chaotic. I don't know. I just look at the background characters and the humans. I'm like, this isn't really fun. I don't really care for them that much. I respect the effort. I don't really enjoy it, except for Chelsea, who's half human at best. The Krakens were fun though, I'll give them that. I wish there was more world building though with the Krakens and their people and their kingdom. That also seemed a bit simple. It felt small in what it represented. Like it's a big piece of structure, but it didn't really capture the grandeur of the Kraken people, in my opinion. Oddly enough, for being in the ocean, it felt like a very small movie. Also, I was waiting for this to be like a musical. I was just waiting for songs to start. I'm like, oh, never mind. It's a licensed song instead, which, okay, I guess it gets the montage done or whatever, or this action sequence that's awkward. And you better believe that there's a dance number at the end of this movie, you know, as is tradition. But yeah, I guess when it comes to the quality of this film, I thought it was okay. It's not one of the memorable movies from DreamWorks. And as time goes on, I don't think I will look back on it with any kind of like, wow, I was wrong. It was amazing. It wasn't incredible. I thought it was a very safe movie, very simple movie. And the visuals were fun, but overall it just felt very contained. And I was expecting more. I think Luca is better. I think Turning Red is better. They're kind of in the same ballpark, you know, with fish people and transformation. And I said on my YouTube community tab where I'm like, oh man, it's a hard act to follow for The Last Wish. And folks were like, that's not fair. And I'm like, I don't care. You know, I don't care if you think it's fair or not. I'm going to say it because, you know, that is a hard act to follow. The Last Wish was very good. It made folks go, wow, DreamWorks, you can do it. And I think it's okay to hold them to a higher standard when they achieve a higher standard. And I'm not saying it needs to be the gold standard every single time, but it goes to show that this studio has gotten better. And I'm going to continue to look on them with, you know, I want to be impressed. I want to see what you got to show. I want to see what you got to show me. I want you to wow me. And I know they can do it. I'm not saying that Ruby Gilman was a bad movie. It's not, but it wasn't a fantastic movie. And I think that's worth saying. It's a very average movie. But in general, movies are just in a weird place right now where streaming wise, it's like kind of stuck. Where a lot of families are like, why would we go out to see Elemental when we just wait for it on Disney Plus? Why would we spend hundreds of dollars for a movie that we can just wait for? And it seems that the only movies that really do well at the moment are the ones that can really wow an audience, like Spider-Verse. So we're going through a transition right now, folks, for both movies and streaming. And I think both industries aren't quite sure what to make of it. So let's hold our breath and see what happens next. So for the folks who have seen Ruby Gilman, tell me down below in the comments what your thoughts. I'm curious to pick your brains, and I will see you all next time.